How does religion play into an awakening? Was a question that I heard walking up the hill today from the beach, that someone out there was asking me as a spiritual leader who's awakened and here to awaken 1 billion people with collaborations, with one person at a time, and with ideally finding the best social media management company, people, team out there to help me spread my message. We are on pause right now between building a funnel or how we're going to move forward with getting more visibility online. So if you know anybody who might be a good match to Miss Margot, who can work with a very creative brain and kind of someone who can take the lead and build me with the creational content that I already have and say, we already have so much, this is what we need to do, and this is how we're going to do it, and then basically implement that, and then I will come on and talk and do lives and do what I do, which is a lot of free content to help educate people on sensory awakenings, as well as facilitate those of you who perhaps had an awakening and are trying to reintegrate. Also offering private retreats as well as group retreats here in Mexico in person when you would like to come here and really get deep into your own spiritual conscious path, whatever you are, whether you're a world leader or a mayor or a leader of your company. I'm definitely guided to work right now with leaders that have a lot of influence, because our message, I'm aware of after my awakening, does need to change as we survive and thrive as a human species in a very rapidly changing reality as we wake up to a new reality. So that's my spiel. Now, what I wanted to say was every profound awakening personally that I've had and seen in other people, there is usually, it's so much better when I can see myself clearly. There is usually a component to it where what happens is all of our ideologies, all of our religious programming over many, many centuries as a human nation surfaces, and generally speaking, in a profound awakening where you break through the matrix, you actually go beyond the ideologies and even the biblical stuff and all of that, and you realize that you are a universal being, which is beyond belief. Okay, so we are seeing that now in science, and I really do believe that yes, religion and connection to the greater power is so important. But we've also seen the power of beliefs and how they can cause hurt and harm, just like any system where there's a higher power. So, you see, like in Buddhism and Hinduism, the universal concepts are a little bit louder than some of the Christianity things, which I hate to say it, but it's true. Christianity has created a lot of pain and suffering on the world, which when I met Christ, my first awakening, that was not his intention. And what I can share with you that I know is, his teachings have been very tainted. And if you've ever met the pure essence of Christ, you would understand, I suppose, that he would, if he were to come back in another body, probably have to deal with a lot of the torturous things that happened, and then set straight a lot of his teachings, which have been pilgrimaged. Is that the right word? People took them on their own pilgrimage, came to their own conclusions, rewrote them, retaught them, and assumed that they knew, but we can't. None of us can, because he's not here in the flesh to remind us. Or is he perhaps reborn? Who's to say? What I can tell you, that working with many people that have had awakenings will often say that they are Christ reincarnated. That also happened to me in all awakenings. So my conclusion of that is that we are all downloaded into the stories that we are here to play out, hence religion. Now, when I had my last awakening, I always am called back in awakenings to my pure potential supersensory parts beyond the physical. Now, what's interesting is I had a lot of people try to give me things, and what I was getting was, no, instead of somebody passing you some form of ID to identify your religious beliefs, be guided. And I talk about this in the book that I'm writing right now, but being guided through the truthful story of so much information that's been taken out of biblical texts, and we don't have access to a lot of the books. So the access codes are within us, which is why people think they are the downloaded Christ. Let's call it that way, so that we can understand that individualism is not the ultimate truth, and that awakening reminds us of our infinite connection beyond religious beliefs. Okay, so I found it's quite funny because I'm quite certain that I was one of the founders of these teachings in the past. The original kind of wisdom that I think we've held for forever and ever and ever and ever and ever are universal types of beliefs that are so much beyond any limitation, and one could not truly know unless they had lived an experience as that, as a more awakened, more conscious being for a period of time, in which it doesn't matter if you've studied the Bible or various texts for your whole life, you ideally would be swiped clean of all of that, and be shown through experience the aha of the beyond. All right, so the first book that was given to me very simply through a dear friend of mine, he took it off his bookshelf and he said, Margot, you need this. And it was 2 books that he gave me that day, which was this recent summer, that just fell into my lap as I was just remaining open after my own experiences of awakening. Now, one of them was called The Illusions of a Messiah, or the Illusions of a Reluctant Messiah. Very great book if you get a chance to read it. And then he gave me the Bhagavad Gita, which I thought was so of courseness, because that's what I was called to as a very young child. That those were the truths that felt most close to me very young, as like a 8-year-old philosopher. And today, after the beach, after my climb up the hill, it's interesting. I sat down at some random hotel, and I found 2 treasures, 2 books. One of them was the New Testament, which is interesting, and I flipped to a page, chapter 20, and I don't feel even guided to read this right now, but I will perhaps in another live. But because I was asked, what is your religion, I'm coming to share that I am of many books. And the ultimate truth is in our DNA code, which is what I believe is we are all gods. And now a lot of people would disagree with that, but I do believe in a higher power that's always guiding us, absolutely. And I think most of us universally, nationwide, can probably generally agree that there's a higher power. But if you're living in a war zone where your children were being tortured, you probably would not feel that way. You would wonder where the higher power is in that, right? So I believe that religion in itself can be a means to destruction and things that have happened, which is not the ultimate truth. So I want to make very clear of that. And then I like to read from books that I'm writing myself, or wisdom that comes in as pure consciousness, as well as be open to books such as the New Testament or the Bhagavad Gita, or anything from whatever it is that you want to follow. If it guides you to love and to peace and to loving your neighbors and to not harming each other and to expanding consciousness with love and joy and equanimity and peace and all of that, then we can move forward as a species. If we continue to kill each other over religion, then we're just repeating cyclical trauma. So that's my answer, and I'm sticking to it. I will refer to various wisdoms, and you'll see me flip oracle flips. So I just wanted to plop that into whatever my new social media platform is, because a lot of people will want to know, what is your religion? I don't believe it matters, as long as we're all kind and caring people, and that we have the best interest of others at heart, and that we reimagine what power is, true power. And I'm not talking about money, sex, power. That is old school. And when we have money, sex, power, lower chakra types of desires, we end up hurting people because we're not fully in awareness of our higher powers, our higher spiritual powers. And we then do silly things with our egoic desires that often will have a money or a financial goal plugged in as a higher goal behind the human who's on the other line, right? So we see this in corporations, we see this in coaching, we see this in any hierarchy where I'm better than you or I stand taller than you. And a lot of people will talk about shoulder to shoulder or equality, but don't actually, like, when it comes to the push, comes to shove, it's an interesting, you got to be able to call a spade and make sure that anybody you choose to work with sees you as much as a student as you see yourself as the master to help them. Does that make sense? That's like a true teacher to me, that every time I teach someone, I go into it with humility to understand that that person sitting in front of me, no matter how successful or not successful they deem themselves, is not about me or the higher order. It is that we see each other as equals, and that those people have the same amount of wisdom to teach me as I do them, that I bring them some level of value, which is why trade used to be a very beautiful frequency of currencies, because you could be revered as a healer or a teacher or a sage or a monk or a healer, or you could be a chef or a cook or a fisherman or someone who sewed the nets, whatever, the shepherds, and all of that. So this is, the awakening goes beyond the character roles and sees no or more or less values. We'll also see that through various religions. Does that make sense? And beyond the senses, none of that matters. So anyways, speaking of that, that's something I wanted to speak to today. Thank you for being here. And you can join me here in Huatulco for a private retreat where we can access all of your map, your spiritual purpose, your map, and why you're here, which includes if you're, an 8-figure earner and you want to become one, or you want strategy, you will say, your ego will say, well, Margot doesn't have 5 bazillion followers. That's not my jam. I am not the next influencer online that has 8 bazillion figures and a bazillion followers. I'm the kind of shamanic medicine woman that's tucked back, having a beautiful, slow living art. Well, not slow, because I have 5-year-olds that are twins, and we have a lot of, beauty that we manage here. So my thing is, yes, you will find me online, but do I want to live online? No. I'm meditating in the jungle, and I'm working with people here in person, and then working my magic and all the other little projects that we're working on, as well as creating art and all of those things, enjoying life. So there's many possibilities for you to come here, anything from a luxurious hotel where we work one-on-one together, and this will include anything and all things, because I'm an expert in you. That's my gift, is extrasensory abilities that in my past I was a psychic and a clairvoyant, and I worked with people that did mediumship, and I did card readings. And then my third awakening was like, Margot, you are a world peace bringer, world global messenger, and to own that, to own the truth that from the mother perspective, from the creational perspective, we are the creators, awakening to our true power. And this is beyond common perception. This is beyond limitations. And those are the energies I'm guided to work with people. Yes, I can still place your hands on mine and see through you into your soul map and why you're here and what you're here to do. And I think this is why it's very important that as those of us that are leaders and those of us that are big influencers, that we stay very close to the sacred, very close to the divine, and that we're not operating out of ego or creating this imagery, self-brand, and bragging about our lifestyles and what we have that other people don't, and how you're at a higher level and those people at other levels can hardly even get to your level because you're so high level. Like that, to me, that teaching is very detrimental, and I've seen it cause harm not only to myself but to many other people. So the thing is, to me, when I see someone at the end of their rope because they've been hurt or harmed, is that we need to repair that. We need to repair some of the teachings that are out there that are causing harm. Now, when it comes to psychology only works on this part. If you were to crack open your mind and your head, psychology could potentially help you there a little bit, but it's just reframing trauma and trying to think of it as separate parts from you that need to be nurtured. Now, what's most important, as we've always known as healers, and this is ancient, is the brain heart coherence, where states of peace and states of wellness are actually the proper type of prayer that has potential to create the ripples that change and hold true balance in the world. Now, because so much of that balance is become about money and making billions, we've lost the values of our inner compass, which, if we got back in touch with our inner compass, our moral, our higher levels of existence, then we would make much different choices and we would not be at risk. Our species would not be at risk, and we are at risk, just like any other wild animal is at risk. And we're going to see that decline if we don't wake up. So my whole mission with a message, my $1.1 million message with a message, is to educate the entire world on new ways that awaken the autism, that awaken the full spectrum, that awaken those of us that have maybe been tapped down by societal norms, because we need a critical mass. So my mission is, yeah, we need to hurry up and have a critical mass, but we don't need to hurry to become millionaires. So for anybody who feels guided to help share my message, what I've been guided to be invited in to people's podcasts, to people's stages, to people's protests, peaceful protests ideally, but also to help awaken women. And I don't mean in the glossy sense of like I'm the next big brand. I tried that. That was not for me. I had beautiful photos done where I won a rebranding through a popular company, and then behind the scenes, those brainstorms of what I was marketing and building were basically copied and then sold for millions. So that's a whole other story that I'm not going to get into right now. But the good thing is, when you work with me behind the scenes or in front of the scenes in any capacity, that's the potential, is you can take your goal of, maybe making 70 million and then you leaped very quickly to 100 million by being inspired by the divine idea of someone who's an excellent channel. And my goal is whatever your goal is, if it's for the greater whole of the society and to take society beyond its destructive ways. So quick introduction to me, quick introduction to my beliefs, and beyond belief and beyond ideology, that is where we're going to make the most impact. All right, even though I don't have a fancy microphone or fancy lighting, this is just me rolling. I do have material with fancy lighting if that makes me look more important to you, but truly the wisdom is through the voice of an awakened being that has been knocked on the head 3 times with spiritual awakenings in order to become the messenger and the healer that I've always been, and to become the essence of that which I've always been, which is a calm, peaceful, loving, kind person in perimenopause with twins. So you'll see that, yes, sometimes I'm a little bit reactive and there is some rage there. And I think that if we don't have a little bit of frustration right now with the way the world is, then we're very possibly like psychopathic or narcissistic. So even with being labeled narcissistic from someone who I believe is quite narcissistic in their own work, and there's many leaders right now that fit that terminology quite perfectly, and look into it. Know the character of a narcissist. I think it's very important right now that we really understand narcissism, especially as empaths, because so often narcissists or narcissistic personality disorder ends up in leadership. And those of us that want to come in with a warm, loving, empathetic vibration can definitely be taken advantage. And that's nothing new. And it's not an us and them thing. It's these are people that are not rehabilitated. These are people that have traumas that just brush it off like it's no big deal and perpetuate a pretty face or a brand that is narcissistic in nature. And let's pray that that changes with education, and let's pray that these ripples of insights change not just the industry of self-help, where we actually maybe become less addicted to self-help and more aware of our true power, our heart-centered knowing, our inner compass of value and moral, so that we can make wise decisions in the planet awakened. And awakened is a state, and it's a state that is not simple or easy to hold all the time, just so you know. And if you do study Hinduism or the Bhagavad Gita, you will have some insight to that. And I do suggest that. I'm currently in a program with Deepak Chopra, The Awakening. My awakenings sometimes have felt more traumatic, but they always bring me back home. And so home is your sacred piece that can vibrate to the world and be deranged in your expression and radical in your expression, because we don't have time in this lifetime to be quiet, just tucked away meditating in the mountains. It's like it's time to shake up as a wake up. Shake up as a wake up. The other day, I was listening to a diary of a CEO, and there was a gentleman on there that spoke about safe AI. At the end of the podcast, the host, and I apologize, I can't remember his name at the time, he said, maybe I do need to wake up, and maybe I do need to apply, and the world shook. Like I always say, when Mark was in the room, a wake up is a shake up. The world actually shook. There was a little 30-second earthquake. And so I see this as beyond entertainment. Even though The Awakening, to me, you come back and you have to see the world as entertainment, but I do believe there's a true awakening required for us to preserve our species. So follow me for more insight. In this journey, it's very important that we have fun, stay fit and have fun mentally, spiritually, emotionally. Make wellness number one for yourself, for your family, for your community, and there will be a domino tipping or a ripple effect that has potential and does influence the entire world and beyond. All right, Margot is your beyonder. All right, and that's my take. Take care. Have a beautiful day. Mwah.